Yes, Prabhu, you can go ahead now.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha. You play the cardinals. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhattacana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhattacana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajagacharya Ashtottara to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavajagacharya Ashtottara to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktabrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, before we begin, this seems to be a brand new book. Let's see what the date says here. 2021. Did we get all new brand new books? No, yours is the old one. Anyway, still, okay. Okay. On this 22nd day of August, 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 5, Karma Yoga, Action and Krishna Consciousness, text number 26 on page 252. Kama, Krodha, Vimuktanam, Yatinam, Yatachetasam, Abhito, Brahmanirvanam, Vartate, Viditatmanam, Kama Krodha Vimuktanam, Yatinam Yatachetasam, Abhito Brahmanirvanam, Vartate Viditatmanam, Kama Krodha Vimuktanam, Yatinam Yatachetasam, Abhito Brahmanirvanam, Vartate Viditatmanam, Kama Krodha Vimuktanam, Yatinam Yatachetasam, Abhito Brahmanirvanam, Vartate Viditatmanam, Kama Krodha Vimuktanam, Yatinam Yatachetasam, Abhito Brahmanirvanam, Vartate Viditatmanam, Kama Krodha Vimuktanam, Yatinam Yatachetasam, Abhito Brahmanirvanam, Vartate Viditatmanam. Anyone on Zoom?
Kama Krodha Vimuktanam,
Kama Krodha Vimuktanam,
Yatinam Yatachetasam,
Yatinam Yatachetasam,
Abhito Brahmanirvanam,
Abhito Brahmanirvanam,
Vartate Viditatmanam,
Vartate Viditatmanam. Okay, I'll read the synonyms. Kama, from desires, Krodha and anger, Vimuktanam, of those who are liberated. Yatinam, of the saintly persons, Yatachetasam, who have full control over the mind. Abhitaha, assured in the near future, Brahmanirvanam, liberation in the Supreme. Vartate, is there, Vidita Atmanam, of those who are self-realized. Translation. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Purport. Of the saintly persons who are constantly engaged in striving towards salvation, one who is in Krishna consciousness is the best of all. The Bhagavatam 4:22-39 confirms this fact as follows. Yat pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya karmashayam gatit. You want to chant it?
Yeah,
okay, let's try it line by line. Yat pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya karmashayam gatitam udgatayanti santaha Tadvanna rikta matayo yatayo piruddha Sroto ganastamaranam bhajavasudevam. Just try to worship in devotional service Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even great sages are not able to control the forces of the senses as effectively as those who are engaged in transcendental bliss by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, uprooting the deep-grown desire for fruitive activities. Close quote. In the conditioned soul, the desire to enjoy the fruitive result of work is so deep-rooted that it is very difficult even for the great sages to control such desires despite great endeavors. A devotee of the Lord, constantly engaged in devotional service in Krishna consciousness, perfect in self-realization, very quickly attains liberation in the Supreme. Owing to his complete knowledge in self-realization, he always remains in trance. To cite an analogous example of this, Darshana Dhyana Sangsparshar Matsya Kurma Vahangamaha Svanya Pratyani Pushnanti Tataham Api Padmaja. By vision, by meditation, and by touch only do the fish, the tortoise, and the birds maintain their offspring. Similarly, do I also, O Padmaja. The fish brings up its offspring simply by looking at them. The tortoise brings up its offspring simply by meditation. The eggs of the tortoise are laid on land, and the tortoise meditates on the eggs while in the water. Similarly, the devotee in Krishna consciousness, although far away from the Lord's abode, can elevate himself to that abode simply by thinking of him constantly, by engagement in Krishna consciousness. He does not feel the pangs of material miseries. This state of life is called Brahma Nirvana, or the absence of material miseries, due to being constantly immersed in the Supreme. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this phrase Brahma Nirvanam, you may notice, is coming up again and again in text 24, 25, and now 26. And so you can see what is the prerequisite for Brahma Nirvana. We learn what is the value of Brahma Nirvana. Why should we, want to attain that state? Well, Brahma Nirvana. Prabhupada said, what does Nirvana mean? Nirvana is an English word. It's very much associated with the Buddhism, which has been around for a long time in America.
From the desires.
Yeah, it probably says finished. Finished. Your involvement, your meditation, your attraction to the material world, completely finished. And Brahma Nirvana means, emphasizes how that happens by absorbing one's mind in the Supreme Brahman. And it's very clear in all the Prabhupada's purports, whereas it may not be as clear in the verse itself, that means Krishna consciousness. The absolute truth is understood in three phases. But Vadanti tat tattva vidas, those who know the truth have declared that the ultimate reality can be known in three different levels, three different phases. One is Brahman, or the undifferentiated white light. Simply effulgence, spiritual effulgence. And this Brahman, we say, one of the first things I learned when I joined the temple is that these little phrases, Aham Brahmasmi, means I am Brahman. We are pure spirit. We're not these bodies, gross body, we're spirit. But we're not the Para Brahman. Para Brahman means the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's possible to achieve Brahma Nirvana without Bhakti Yoga. That's spoken of in, I think I mentioned this maybe this morning class. And that is this aruha krutchena param padang tada, is that besides the devotees, the demigods are praying to Krishna in the womb. Ye nye adabindaksha, O lotus-eyed Lord, abiksha vimukta maninas. These yogis think that they're liberated. They have the impression that they're liberated, but they're really not. Vimukta maninas, prayashta bhavat avishuddha buddhaya. Their intelligence is not completely purified because they're refusing to understand that the ultimate reality is a person, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They think that if there is a person up there, he's subordinate to the impersonal Brahman. And so, aruha krutchena, by great effort and austerity, imagine what it's like. You know, we have the great advantage of Krishna consciousness, where if you just chant Hare Krishna and you dance in ecstasy and you take prasadam and you sweep the floor and you do what we do in bhakti, even in neophyte stage, then you can feel yourself being your material desires lessening. The more that you yati now means one who strives. The more that you're serious about putting your whole being into the process of devotional service, the more more quickly you'll advance, and that advancement is tangible by how much you're becoming detached from material attraction, vairagya. So imagine trying to become detached without bhakti, without Krishna, without the deities, without prasadam, without the holy name, without the association. What do you got? Your own mind. Your own intelligence, sitting there alone somewhere in the Himalayas or in some yoga studio, wherever it may be. And the mind, you know, is a reservoir of all kinds of ideas and desires and all kinds of memories and all these things. You can't just deny it, you know. You have to engage it. That's the genius. Engage the mind in thinking of Krishna and the holy name, reading the books, speaking about Krishna, glorifying. Saul, you can close the door. Thanks, Ruth. And so then it becomes possible. And that's what this verse is about. That he goes, Yat pada pangata palasa balasa bhaktya. This is a famous verse, Prabhupada quoted often. It's in the teachings of the Kumaras, to Maharaj Prithu. He was the Shakti Besha avatar for being a king. For you know, Shakti is Pala Shakti. Pala means to protect. That's the prime duty of all the kings, to protect the praja, to protect the citizens from danger. That's what the word Kshatriya means. Kshat means hurt. Triya means to deliver, just like Trayate. So they deliver by maintaining an army and protecting from dangers, and also by seeing that they're following Dharma, that they're protected from internal enemies too. So Prithu was the ideal king. And the Kumaras therefore came to see him. They visited. These are great ancient sages. Like they're the oldest in the universe. They were the first sons of Brahma, right? And but they didn't want to get married because the idea is he wanted to propagate the praja, or the descendants, and fill up the universe with all of these souls that need to take up their bodies again. So the same word, you can listen. Progenitor means those. And Prajapati. Prajapati, progenitor, you can see. Sanskrit is the source of even language. So these 4 sons, they refused to get married. And not only that, but by their mystic power, the yogic power, they kept themselves about 5 or 6 years old. You remember, wasn't there a song like that? I won't grow up, I won't grow up. Maybe that's not part of it. That was, I think, in the, anyway, it's an old movie when I was a kid. But they really did it. And Brahma was angry. You know, he wanted them to grow up, so he became angry. And from the middle of his forehead came Shiva. But Shiva also has this Rudra aspect, where he becomes very angry sometimes. And he presides over the mode of ignorance. Or he expands in the Rudras, who then destroy the universe. You know, imagine how angry you have to be. So anyway, so this is near the end of their instructions to him. So what they're saying, this as the translation is there, but Pada Pankaja Palasha Balasa Bhaktya. And once Prabhupada has a lecture where he keeps chanting that first line, he's just relishing that first line. Because Vilasa Bhakti means he's enjoying spiritual pleasure. The devotees from serving the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord. You have the analogy of the lotus, right? The lotus feet. So that's pada pankaja. You know what pankaja means? Literally? Pankaja. It's a word for lotus. Born from the mud. Born from mud. Growing in the mud at the bottom of the lake or the river. So pada pankaja is lotus feet. Pada means feet. It's like we have a pseudopod, right? A false foot. Centipede. 100 feet, you know. Anyway, so Sanskrit. Pada pankaja palasha. But palasha, those are the petals of the lotus. So here, since the foot is compared to the lotus, the petals are the toes. So serving the toes of the lotus feet, they're enjoying the bhakti vilas, you know, this pleasure. That pleasure, karmashayam kutitamudgatayanti santa, for the santas, the saints, the devotees, it unties the knots of desire in the heart, which is karmashayam, the aspiration to enjoy fruitive things, you see? So the devotees naturally, by just serving the Lord, they get free from material desire. That's your liberation. That's your Brahma Nirvana. That's it. That's Nirvana means it's finished. The material desires are finished. But on the other hand, Tadvan Narikta Matayo, those whose minds are empty of bhakti, the impersonalists, the yogis, the materialists, even though yataya, here's this word striving again, they're striving to control the senses, but they can't. Although they're doing it, Ruddha Sroto Ganas, Tamadanamba Jabasa, they are eventually overcome by the flow, the strong flow of material desires. So you can't just repress the senses, as Krishna famously says in English translation. What will repression accomplish? You know, you have to sublimate or dovetail the activities of all the senses, the mind, the intelligence, and the desires in the service of Krishna. Then they become purified, and they're not attracted to matter anymore. Famously, Yamunacharya is quoted twice in the purport, if I recall. You know the verse. You know, Yadavadi Mamacheta Krishna Padaravinde Navanavana Dhamam Yuditam Rantamasi Tadavadi Badanadi Sangame Smarayamane Bhavati Mukhabikaro Sustinishtivanancha. Now, can you repeat? No, I'm sorry. Okay. We'll just do it line by line. No, so Yadavadi means ever since my mind has been enjoying the bhakti vilas, the pleasure of serving the lotus feet of Krishna. Then ever since I've been fully enjoying that, whenever I remember, because he was a great king who then renounced and became a great acharya, Yamunacharya. Ever since I've been enjoying that then whenever my memory, because it comes up, because the king, you have the harem and the whole thing. So whenever I think of sex life, I spit at the thought. It's not like, oh, let me remember. No, he said, I don't remember that. Where did that come from? Well, your mind, it's involuntary. You make up. I spit at the thought, and then let me be absorbed in my mind in Krishna. See? Now that's a very valuable state to be in, where you have natural detachment. And it's not even attached, it's aversion to sense gratification. So that's what he's speaking here. Kama Krodha Muktanam, one who's free of lust and anger. Yatinam, there's that yatinam, one who's striving and is controlled, yet the chetasam, is quickly assured in the near future of being Brahma Nirvana, being completely detached. Vartate Viditatmanam, those who are self-realized. So this whole thing through meditation, so how does it Prabhupada describe this? The devotee in Krishna consciousness, although far away from the Lord's abode, can elevate himself to the Lord simply by thinking of him constantly. So this is the, we know that time, we know from the Shastra that there's no time in the spiritual world. There's a verse in Brahma Samhita, I can't recall the Sanskrit right away, but it means there's no past, there's no future, it's just the eternal present. No one gets old, no one dies, no one gets bored and wants to do something else. Every moment is ever fresh and new, So that's and it's all pervading. In other words, Krishna is here right now. The temple is a way of manifesting him. The deity, he's already here, but we can't see him with our present eyes. So he, out of mercy, and mercy of him and the spiritual master who brings. He appears in the form, and through the medium of stone or wood or whatever it may be. But it's really Krishna. So we can see him and serve him and glorify him. And we hear so many wonderful stories how the deity, when you're pure enough, reciprocates. There's this great story about two of Lord Chaitanya's associates and devotees in Navadvip. I don't know, maybe they were in Navadvip, but they were in Bengal. So the father was a great devotee. I forget his name, Mukunda? Was it Mukunda and Raghu? Raghava something? Raghunandana. So the Raghunandana is the boy. He's a little boy, but he's, 6 years old, something. So the father has to go do something. Mukunda has to go do something. But he had deities, and they had to be, the prasadam had to be offered. So I don't know if he cooked, I don't think he cooked everything, but he said, when the offering time comes, you put, make sure the plate is made up, and you make the offering, and make sure he eats everything. So it's nice, he'll eat everything. So the boy was, just a kid. You heard this before? They all heard. Maybe someone didn't hear it out there. So anyway, so the father goes away, and the boy does his duty, but he peeks in, and the food is still there. He says, "Oh, my father's going to be angry because you're not eating. Can you please eat everything?" He's talking to the deity, and he's so sincere and simple-hearted that he actually ate the offering. So then the boy said, "Well, okay, now everything's fine." He was chanting Hare Krishna. And the father comes back, and he looks at the plate. There's no offering. "What happened? You didn't make the offering?" "Yeah, I made the offering. The deity, Krishna, ate it." So the father says, "Oh, maybe that's true." So make another offering. And I think then he ate it again, right? So there's stories like that. There's several others, famous Shakshi Gopal, Chura Gopinath, where the deity will actually respond. And Prabhupada, there are stories where it was clear that he was, maybe not out loud, but he was talking to the deity was reciprocating. So you can imagine, the state of purity that calls to mind. But here, the wonderful thing in this at the end is that just by thinking, just by becoming Krishna conscious, then Krishna will reach out. The more that you endeavor to become Krishna conscious, then he acts within your life, in your heart, and he gives you the knowledge. What is it? Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamapi yantite. For those who are always linked up to me in bhakti, tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam, they're worshiping me with love, I give them the intelligence by which they can come to me. So Krishna is going to help us. The yogis he's not going to help, the impersonal yogis, what to speak of the karmakandis, who are praying to him for some material thing. But at least if they're praying to him, then that's a beginning, and they can be turned. So this is a wonderful. We're almost at the end of this chapter now, and he's describing this high state of Brahma Nirvana, and which is very peaceful. And at the last verse is very important in terms of attaining peace, even in this world, this crazy world. All right. If there's any questions or comments on 26, otherwise we'll move on to 27, 28. Okay. Okay, I'll see you say. Sparshan kritva bahir bahyams chakshus chayavantare bruvo pranapana samakritva nasabhyantadacharina yathendriya mano buddhir mudir moksha parayanaha vigate cha bhaya krodho yaksada mukta eva saha. So now here's a little hint of the next chapter, because they're talking about silent meditation here. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence, the transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. Purport. Being engaged in Krishna consciousness, one can immediately understand one's spiritual identity, and then one can understand the Supreme Lord by means of devotional service. When one is well situated in devotional service, one comes to the transcendental position, qualified to feel the presence of the Lord in the sphere of one's activity. This particular position is called liberation in the Supreme. After explaining the above principles of liberation in the Supreme, Brahma Nirvana, the Lord gives instruction to Arjuna as to how one can come to that position by the practice of the mysticism or yoga known as Ashtanga Yoga, which is divisible into an eightfold procedure called Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. In the 6th chapter, the subject of yoga is explicitly detailed, and at the end of the 5th, it is only preliminarily explained. One has to drive out the sense objects such as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell by the pratyahara process in yoga, and then keep the vision of the eyes between the 2 eyebrows and concentrate on the tip of the nose with half-closed lids. There is no benefit in closing the eyes altogether, because then there is every chance of falling asleep. Nor is there benefit in opening the eyes completely, because then there is the hazard of being attracted by the sense objects. The breathing movement is restrained within the nostrils by neutralizing the up-moving and down-moving air within the body. By practice of such yoga, one is able to gain control over the senses, refrain from outward sense objects, and thus prepare oneself for liberation in the Supreme. This yoga process helps one become free from all kinds of fear and anger, and thus feel the presence of the Supersoul in the transcendental situation. In other words, Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of executing yoga principles. This will be thoroughly explained in the next chapter. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always engaged in devotional service, does not risk losing his senses to some other engagement. This is a better way of controlling the senses than by Ashtanga Yoga. So we're getting a little intro to the next chapter. This eightfold yoga system. I tried it. Not easy. Did you do some meditation? David did.
Yeah.
Did you? I got up to about half an hour. That's about as far as I could go.
Max half an hour.
Half an hour.
After that, I would either sleep or get distracted.
Yeah. Or I mean, I was a little older than you, so
Get scared also.
yeah, or get scared. I would have a pain in my knee.
If I'm in meditation for longer, I tried like 3 years ago.
Oh, you did?
If I'm in meditation for longer than 30 minutes, I'll get really scared. I'll open up my eyes immediately.
Yeah, you never know. There might be a snake coming. Prabhupada talks like that. Have you ever heard the yoga system tapes? You should do it. You should, yeah. I'll send you a link. You know, you can easily get it. He describes how, you know, when Krishna gets into it in the next chapter, he gives more detail that there's a certain seat. You should sit on a deer skin, you know. Of course, you know, it's from a deer that's died naturally, you know. So then he explains why a deer skin. Because you're sitting out in the middle of a jungle alone. And that deer skin apparently has some chemical in it that repels reptiles, you know, like that. So you don't have to worry about snakes, at least, you know. And the lions and tigers, they give a little more warning, you know, whatever, so they get up and run. Or fly off if you're, you know, a powerful yogi. But you know, Prabhupada experienced, because he was at that yoga studio. He was living there with Dr. Mishra. So he would see, they would try to meditate. He would teach that, you know, but some of the people would be snoring, you know, probably. I have seen it. And everyone laughs, you know.
Falling asleep is very easy.
It's very, very, yeah. So, but it's a bona fide process, and Krishna gives it here. But the wonderful thing is, when Prabhupada explains it in the next chapter, he explains how you get all the benefits in Krishna consciousness without having, you know, doing something. It's possible. And the idea that once gaining this, once gaining realization of Krishna in your heart, you know, this is the meditating in the heart, you think there's no greater gain than this. And it's complete freedom from any misery, because you're truly transcendental to the body. This comes up in that Sadhu Sangashtaka. There's 8 verses Kapila Dev speaks in the 25th chapter, 3rd canto. And one of the verses, as he's describing it to his mother, is that the sadhu, because the sadhu, tikshava karunika, the qualities of the sadhu. So it's how did he get to be a sadhu? By devotional service. Marashaya katamishta shunmandikatiyandija. So what do they do? The main thing that they do is they absorb themselves in transcendental sound. This is what he's saying. Kata mrishta, so very sweet vibrations about me. You know, the description of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. And because of that, tapandi vividastapa naitan madgata cetasa, because their mind has gone to me, madgata cetasa, then they're not troubled by the ordinary troubles of the body. You may have a pain when you start the process, but you'll forget about it. You know, your mind will be so absorbed in Krishna that it won't bother you. We saw that with Prabhupada. You know, he was in Vrindavan in 1977. I didn't see it personally, but I heard about it. And that was, you know, he had stopped eating and drinking. You know, and he became very emaciated. And the doctor said an ordinary person would be writhing in agony because there's no flesh, you know, between the bone and the nerves. And oh my God. But Prabhupada was lying there, very, you know, stirring. An amazing thing. People would come to visit him. So many people came. And he would say, "Oh, is everything okay with your wife and children? You know, did you get prasadam?" He would be concerned about them. Then people would cry when they see his condition, and he was still thinking like that. So he showed this transcendental state, how you could transcend the bodily condition, even very painful. And after all, the final test is death, when the body is just going crazy and, you know, suffering. I mean, I used to work in a hospital, and I saw many people die. It was a very horrifying experience. Because the fear, the paralyzing, that's a big thing. If you're situated in the perfection of Krishna consciousness, you already understand your ultimate, Siddhadeya, and your actual function and your form and everything in relation to Krishna, you're fully Krishna conscious, then you can pass out of the body in a very peaceful state, you can imagine. Whereas if you're not, you know, most of the time what happens, they drug people up. You know, they just drug you, drug, and you just go out. This is the worst way to go. Then you never know what's going to, you know, where you're going. So it's a terrifying experience because you haven't been trained for it. You don't know what the future is, you know. But devotee is confident. First of all, he's confident that there's life after death, that there's no death. And he's confident, when Krishna promises right in the second chapter, there's no loss or diminution. So if you do just a little bit, you're sure of getting at least a human form and continuing the process. But everything you do materially is obviously taken away. Mrityu sarva haraschaham. Krishna says, as death, I come and take everything away from the materialist. So everybody sees God at death. For the materialist, they see God as death, all-powerful death. You know, kicking them out of the present body, and whatever, you know, is in your mind, with your unfulfilled desires, your karma, all that goes into the mix, and you can have a very dark future. In this world, there's no dharma. Nobody's, you know, just. People are just committing sins left and right, without any knowledge, but still you have to pay for it. But the devotee who's trying to lead a sinless life, practicing the regs, chanting Hare Krishna, may not be completely realized, but he'll come back in a family and get training. So what's the best investment? I'm going to invest here, my energy here and here. Maybe I'll get, you know, be able to get $10,000, 100, maybe even $1 million, and I'll have this and that, some name and fame and everything. And then it's all taken away. You lose it, right? After 30 years, 40 years. Or you invest in Krishna consciousness for your eternal welfare, eternal happiness, you know, going back home, back to Godhead. And okay, you know, I mean, conditioned soul, I may not perfect the thing, but I'll continue in the next life. 1 or 2 lives. After 10 million lives, what's the big deal? So there's no brainer if you have faith. And Prabhupada says that reading this Bhagavad Gita is meant to instill faith in Krishna, who Krishna is, in the process of Krishna consciousness. And that's an invaluable book. So, any questions on these 2 or 3 verses? 2 verses. So this is just an introduction to the next chapter. But now comes the peace formula. This is the last verse in the chapter. This is the most famous verse in this chapter. Bhoktarang yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram sudidang sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantimrichati. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Purport. The conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusory energy are all anxious to attain peace in the material world. But they do not know the formula for peace, which is explained in this part of the Bhagavad Gita. The greatest peace formula is simply this: Lord Krishna is the beneficiary in all human activities. Men should offer everything to the transcendental service of the Lord, because He is the proprietor of all planets and the demigods thereon. No one is greater than He. He is greater than the greatest of all the demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. In the Vedas, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6.7, the Supreme Lord is described as Tamishwaranam Paramam Maheshwaram. Under the spell of illusion, living entities are trying to be lords of all they survey, but actually they are dominated by the material energy of the Lord. The Lord is the master of material nature, and the conditioned souls are under the stringent rules of material nature. Unless one understands these bare facts, it is not possible to achieve peace in the world, either individually or collectively. This is the sense of Krishna consciousness. Lord Krishna is the supreme predominator, and all living entities, including the great demigods, are His subordinates. One can attain perfect peace only in complete Krishna consciousness. This 5th chapter is a practical explanation of Krishna consciousness, generally known as Karma Yoga. The question of mental speculation as to how Karma Yoga can give liberation is answered herewith. To work in Krishna consciousness is to work with the complete knowledge of the Lord as the predominator. Such work is not different from transcendental knowledge. Direct Krishna consciousness is Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is a path leading to Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Absolute, and the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure soul is the eternal servant of God as his fragmental part and parcel. He comes into contact with Maya or illusion due to the desire to lord it over Maya, and that is the cause of his many sufferings. As long as he is in contact with matter, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. Krishna consciousness, however, brings one into spiritual life even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter, for it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. The more one is advanced, the more he is freed from the clutches of matter. The Lord is not partial toward anyone. Everything depends on one's practical performance of duties in Krishna consciousness, which in every respect helps one control the senses and conquer the influence of desire and anger. Now, I don't know if, are we reading along exactly? Yeah. Because some changes have been made, in these letters. Okay. As we go through, if I get this book, you'll see there's some differences, small differences. And one who stands fast in Krishna consciousness, controlling the above-mentioned passions, remains factually in the transcendental stage, or Brahma Nirvana. The eightfold yoga mysticism is automatically practiced in Krishna consciousness because the ultimate purpose is served. There is a gradual process of elevation in the practice of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. But these only preface perfection by devotional service, which alone can award peace to the human being. It is the highest perfection of life. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 5th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of karma yoga, or action in Krishna consciousness. So, that's the end of this chapter. And what did we learn here? Now we had a chapter called Karma Yoga, chapter 3, right? And then in this 4th chapter was Transcendental Knowledge, and we learned that Transcendental Knowledge is a result of acting in Krishna consciousness, right? And now you have the fruit of that, which is this Brahma Nirvana, which in some ways, is related to Krishna consciousness, but as I mentioned, it's not emphasizing the details of serving Krishna, but simply the benefit of being transcendental to the pushings and the pullings of the senses and all of the distractions of the mind. There's a fixing of one's intelligence and understanding that Krishna is the ultimate beneficiary of everything that I do. That's what this Bhoktaram Yaga Tapasa means. Whatever yajna we perform, it should be for the benefit of Krishna. And whatever austerity we should perform should be for purification so we can better serve Krishna. This is like, and it's spoken so nicely in the fifth canto by Rishabdev 551. He says, why are you telling me to perform austerity? He says, Nayam deho deha bhajan niloke kashtan kamanadate vidbhujange. He's telling his sons in heavy words. He says, in the human form of life, you should not work very hard in order to enjoy sense gratification, just like the stool-eating hogs. And he got the intention of all his sons. Okay, what is he going to say? But what's the alternative? In other words, in one verse, he gives the two poles of activity. One is just gross sense gratification, which he says a few verses later is only mad people just work for sense gratification. Nunam pamatta krudate vikarma yadindriya priti apranoti. So in this verse he says the same thing. He says it's degrading for human beings just to be involved in trying to satisfy the senses. It's degrading. You're going to lose a human form of life, and it's horrible. So what's the alternative? Because we want happiness, and it seems like the way to do it is to get sense gratification. What else can it be? But then he says, Tapo divyam. Here's the austerity. Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shuddhya jasmam brahma saukyam tvanantam. Now he doesn't mention bhakti there, but he's really talking about that. One should perform divine austerity. Now Prabhupada always, interesting, he always uses the word austerity and penance, right? Penance means that I know I've done the wrong thing up to now. So now I'm going to do something different in order to purify myself so I don't have to suffer the results of those sinful activities. That's where the penance comes in. Otherwise, austerity you can perform for demonic purposes, as Hiranyakashipu did. So it's not just tapasya, it's tapo divyam, divine. And by that, one purifies one's existence. And what's the advantage of that? Yasmat brahma saukyam tvanantam. One can come to the point of being able to enjoy unending, ever-increasing happiness, brahma saukyam, in touch with the spirit. Not just titillation of the material senses, which actually obviously has a limit, both in time and intensity. But actually, pure spiritual happiness is endless, is unlimited. That's what is available. So the same idea, these verses and these chapters, they all can reconfirm each other. So understanding, this is that understanding. Yes, Krishna is the enjoyer of all my yajnas, all my tapasya. He's the Lord of all the worlds, But he's not just some master sitting up there enjoying everything, Suridam sarva bhutanam. He is the well-wishing friend of every living entity. Why else would he take the trouble to accompany you in your heart, no matter where you go in this? He's always there. You're in the ant body, you're in the hog body, the demigod body. He's always trying to guide you, and we're always refusing in our material. So bhakti means to allow the supersoul to guide you, not directly, but through the medium of the spiritual master, the sadhus, and the shastra. That's the same supersoul telling you. So this is the wonder of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is speaking directly to us. And it's being explained so we can understand it by his pure devotee. So it's a great treasure, really. So this is where peace comes in. Now, peace involves, as we learn, Lord Chaitanya says, and Krishna says at the end of the second chapter, Vihaya kamanyak savam punam charadi nikspaha nirmamo nadahankara sashanti madhigachati. Or give up your these material desires, this kama, which is self-centered desire to please. Kamanyak sa, all of them. Puman charadi nikspaha. You're living free of these kind of desires. Nirmamo nadahankara, having no sense of separate propriety, that everything belongs to God, is meant for his service. Nidahankara means that I'm the doer, the independent doer. No, Krishna is the ultimate doer, the material energy. I'm simply trying to serve him. Then such a person can attain peace. So the key element in this peacefulness is to sublimate the material desires into spiritual desires. That Prabhupada called it dovetailing, but that's the result of Krishna. The first tangible result of Krishna consciousness is that I'm feeling so much more peaceful because I'm not competing with the whole world for sense gratification, and then being disappointed, and then being insulted on YouTube, or what is it called, Instagram, and feeling terrible, and oh my God, you know, and how do I look on YouTube? Oh my God, look, I'm getting old. This is horrible. Yeah. Who cares? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So that ability, that being free, you know, from the, that's where the peace really comes. But your desires are simply to try to please Krishna, and then there's never a shortage. There's always an opportunity. You can always sweep the patio and please Krishna. It's free. Whereas, you know, if you want to enjoy some sense gratification, you got to get the money. You got to, you know, it's free. You can always chant. So, any final comments on this chapter? Next chapter is very fast. There's a lot of important instruction in it. But ultimately, Arjuna will reject the sixth chapter, the Dhyana Yoga, the Ashtanga Yoga. And we'll move into the seventh chapter. Prabhupada said that the essence of the Gita is in the 7th to 12th chapter, the middle 6 chapters. It's all about bhakti. So nicely moving along. All right, I have a few minutes. How about a couple of classic poems? I don't know if you've heard the Fallen and Redemption of the Soul poem yet. Okay, listen. So there's a few far out words in order to make it all come out even. I'll explain them at the end. Where Krishna lives, felicity abounds. With pure simplicity and loving sensibility, all serve him with humility. But when a living entity rejects his true identity and out of sheer stupidity surrenders to cupidity, he loses all sagacity and with it all capacity to understand reality or curb his sensuality. Abandoning humility, he touts his own ability, forgetting his fragility and fortune's volatility. Immersed in asininity for what seems an infinity of lives devoid of piety, he suffers an anxiety, till contact with God's devotee, perhaps of utmost brevity, awakens his affinity for words of the divinity. Perceiving the futility of all his imbecility, the soul regains his sanity and casts away his vanity. Endowed with new humility, he serves with all ability and growing spontaneity his guru and the deity. Regaining his identity, the wayward living entity returns to the fraternity of Krishna for eternity. Om Tat Sat. We're all in that parabola somewhere along that line. Luckily, we're on the upswing. The prayer, this is Lord Chaitanya gave this verse to Sanatana Goswami in his teachings in the Manja Lila. I can relate to this one. Kama dinang katina katita palita durni deshas teshan jata mayna kadona natrapano prashanti utrijaitan adayadupate sampratam labna buddhis tvamayatak shadanamabayam mamni yungsvatmadasye. In how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. And then Lord Chaitanya explains, you know, is that these desires that we build up. Now, I don't know if anyone here has been, I've never been a hardcore addict, but I used to smoke cigarettes 60 years ago. When I was a kid, everybody was smoking. So I said, okay, I got to learn to smoke. I was 15. I was like a sophomore in college, in high school, I think. So I went to the park. I said, I lit up the Marlboros. All the kids smoked Marlboros, you know. I went through that whole stage of coughing naturally, you know. So I got to get down. And gradually, you know, okay, I'll smoke. You know, I didn't smoke that much. Gradually, thank God, about half a pack a day maximum. But that went on until I was about 21, when I got seriously ill with hepatitis, and no question of smoking in the hospital. And so when I came out, I said, "This is crazy," you know. So I took up yoga and vegetarianism. You know, I don't remember any really difficult time giving up the cigarettes. But it can be practically impossible. Very difficult.
So many people they can't.
Yeah. You just, you know. Yeah, that's easy. I've done it many times. It's a joke. Yeah. Anyway, so how did I get off on it? Oh yeah. So all of the kamadinam and lust, etc. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, all these things. They're like taskmasters. They're making you do something. Go here, do this, do that. So he said, for lifetimes, I've been obeying these masters, and they've never been satisfied, and they're not showing me any mercy. So now I'm rejecting their demands. But you still have to serve. Serving them. So now I'm running to you, O Krishna. Please engage me in your service. And that way I'll finally give up service to these lower beings. So it's a wonderful verse. So I put that in. Now it's time. I'll have a kirtan. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.